I want to tell you a story today, and this is the story of Goa Gil's 60th birthday from my perspective. I've written about that time at length, and I find it a special moment in my life. It is a special moment in my life. It was a time where I was just breaking through as an artist for the first time, and a lot of exciting stuff happened. It was also the time when I started to, do international bookings. And this was my first transatlantic tour in Mexico with 4 bookings in Mexico. And it was an incredible adventure. So I want to take you with me for a bit to that time. I remember being in the airplane to San Francisco, first time crossing the Atlantic. And as I said, I was already booked a bit around Europe at that time as an up-and-coming artist, and was recently taken in by a back in the day relevant and quite big label that also had a big event. And those things, they just happened during that time. So for example, I was not yet in that label, but I would be informed that I am per telephone a couple of weeks into my trip to California for the first time in my life. It was 2012, times were great, and the psychedelic community was in a different place from nowadays. That is really undoubtedly the case, in a better place, in my opinion. There were exciting new movements, one of them being the up-and-coming genre of high-tech psychedelic, and a lot of stuff was going on. I arrived there at this huge city, and I remember how I thought, God damn it, it's quite frankly not too far off from the movies, the big skyscrapers, the Californian sky, San Francisco sky, and the anonymous crowds on the street walking from their jobs. And I was lucky to be quite well connected through Ignogra from Akashic Records. I think that label doesn't exist anymore, but it did back in the day. I had a valuable contact, and he was the first guy that I met in San Francisco. And he was also my first host. I have slept in his flat for one night. That was in downtown area. I don't know the exact place since I only stayed there for one night. And we had a first conversation. He just released some music of mine. And he told me that he knows somebody, a Brazilian woman, that I would meet the other day, and that she probably can help me out with various things. And so it was. I slept my first night in San Francisco and woke up. There was a letter, I remember, from Ignogra telling me how I get to my host, this Brazilian woman, Celina, and I was on my way to Mission District for the first time. Mission District is in the south of San Francisco. It's a predominantly Latino quarter, but it was kind of also a little bit of a hip place. Lots of artists and alternative beings that were around there. I went off the BART. The BART is something like the metro line of San Francisco, and walked down Mission and saw America for the first time. Like, the real America, you can say. If you're arriving at the airport and then you see downtown, that is just one part, right? Mission District is where people actually live. And I saw, for example, for the first time in my life, because it's not a thing in Germany or Europe, people in front of loan offices, kind of, with those big signs and doing different moves and flips. It now is a little bit more popularized through pop culture, but I saw it for the first time back then consciously. And so I made it to the house after maybe a 10-15 minute walk. And there she was, Selenia was there. I heard a dog inside barking. And that was Pinky, who also would become a good friend of mine during my stay. And I entered the beautiful house. It was like an older wooden house, which is pretty normal in America. In America, they build a lot of houses from wood. Again, something that is quite different from what you would experience in Germany, where everything is made from stone, mostly concrete or stone, but preferably stone, hopefully stone. If you are a person living in Germany, you would want to stay in a house made from stone, ideally. At least that's my taste. And okay, let's get on with the story. Selenia greeted me, and Selenia was so awesome, so welcoming, and such a good caretaker. You have to realize that I was very green back then, in my early 20s, very innocent and sensitive, as I was always quite sensitive. I mean, that's like a major trait of artists, nevertheless. And Selenia was the beacon of safety in America for me when I first came there. Originally, I was planned to meet up with Jacques Le Druid because he said he had some work in the trimming business, but that never came to be. So if Selenia wouldn't have been there, then I don't know. Like, my trip would have been a completely different one. So I entered the mansion and I greet Pinky for the first time, who first was a bit apprehensive. That was a little Chihuahua dog that was fierce and hated all of humanity and all other dogs except her owner, Selenia. She really loved Selenia. Pinky had way too big genitalia, female genitalia. It was a tiny Chihuahua that looked amazing. Let's put it like that. And she said that I shouldn't be scared of her, and I wasn't, of course, growing up with dogs. And Chihuahuas are not really a threat against a 2-meter tall German person, I guess. I didn't feel threatened. I explained her that I love dogs. And of course, I made a huge friendship with Pinky, the Chihuahua that hated everybody. Didn't hate me after all. First, we both were, I guess, a bit apprehensive because I love dogs, but this is the hardest dog to love from all dogs because they're so nasty. She was so nasty. But I started to find it extremely funny. Her nastiness when you go out with her, and she just wanted to kill everything, despite the fact that she was like barely as big as a house cat. Okay, first day there was pretty soothing. She talked to me. She asked me if I want a coffee, if I want a tea, if I really maybe want to smoke something. This, you remember, was the golden time, the golden ages of marijuana in San Francisco. It felt like that to me. I'm telling it to you from my perspective. And a lot of things started to happen then. I met one other guy. I'm just going to call him John. And he was a guy from Montana that was actually a programmer and a computer scientist. Super smart and intelligent guy. And he was married and lived a very, very mundane, normal life. And then his marriage broke apart. And he came to a point in his life, where there was not a good point in his life, basically. And he ended up, through some circumstances, on Burning Man. And that's also where he got to know Selenia, if I remember correctly. And he started to explore psychedelics and the mind, and he became a big DMT guy, basically, who was like, as a DMT psychonaut, is extremely smart person and very different from all the other people. All the other people were really interesting people from all over the world, freaks, musicians like myself, and just tons of different interesting people were going in and out of that house. But John was like very different, coming from a different background and also liberating himself through psychedelics at a way, way, way later point in his life. And then it was only days until the Goa Gil birthday. And Goa Gil got to know that I was in the States. He already knew about my music, and Ignogra managed to get me on the guest list, which was super sweet and a big honor, of course, to be there on the party and getting basically invited as a really young artist to his 60th birthday. And as I said, there would be a lot of stories in between the moment when I arrived at Selenia's and I think 10 days later, maybe, the 60th birthday of Babaji. But I began the video by telling the story of the 60th birthday of Babaji. So I should actually, tell that story instead of all the other little things that happen in between. All right, so the troupe was assembled. There were a couple of people, and another guy that lived in the house, Stefano, and of course Selenia, and a couple of, maybe one or two more people. And we made our way over the Golden Gate Bridge for the very first time, which I previously only have crossed in video games. And that was a majestic moment in itself, sitting in the SUV with these nice people. I felt so protected there because I was not the most secure guy yet. I didn't had the status that I garnered in the years after. Yet I was just breaking through, as I said. I was still a bit shy, which is my nature. My nature is actually to be shy, to the surprise maybe of many of you. We made it over the Golden Gate Bridge and on Route 101 towards a quite common event location there. And I saw the Californian psychedelic trance family for the very first time. People were great. The thing with America is it has a tiny community. Too small, in my opinion. And that's awesome. People were so open, and it was great. Babaji was doing, I guess, a 24-hour set. I believe so. I mean, it was a 60th, right? So that was, I guess, a 24-hour set. And I remember the moment, of course, Jacques Ledorit was another guy that I finally met there at the event. And I remembered that at some point in the next day, Goa Gil was still playing. I wanted to thank him for his invitation over Ignogra. And then Jacques, he was stopping me and telling me, no, you can't do it. How do you think that you're so important to go up to Babaji and on stage when he's performing? Don't do it. And I didn't do it because I thought, okay, like maybe I should listen to Jack. And that was a mistake, of course. I should have listened to my heart and to what I feel and not to another person, because I heard after that, or he made it known over people, that he was sad that I didn't come to greet him or to thank him, which was simply out of shyness and not out of, like I obviously, like I have deep respect for him, even if he didn't play exactly what I was producing at the time. And yeah, that is the story of the 60th birthday of Goa Gil in California so far. I hope that you enjoyed this video. It's getting quite long. I just wanted to tell you a nice little story, and I hope that you enjoyed it a bit, at least. And I have a lot more stories. I don't know if I told it very well. I probably have to get a little bit better at it, but you can let me know in the comment section below if you find it valuable, entertaining, enlightening, or beautiful, or whatever. And if not so, then you can do the same thing, of course. Yeah, that's it with this little excursion into my past. I just did this spontaneously here in my living room, which is another place that you don't know. because my home is quite big and I never really showed it to people properly. Maybe I should do that at some point and get you guys, involved in my other hobbies and stuff, maybe. Who knows? I want to be in touch with you and I love you. Don't forget that you are beautiful. Don't do that. And believe in yourself, trust in yourself. And with that, I wish you a wonderful evening or day or whatever it is, wherever you are. Goodbye.